Good morning, everyone. Good Sunday morning to you who is joining us right now. We are very happy to be connected with you once again in this Sunday live presentation that is going to be truly, truly special about thoughts, perispirit, and health. And we have a very special guest joining us this morning, Dr. Sonia Doi from the United States Spiritist Medical Association, as well as of the International Medical Association. And we also have her as that invaluable contributor of the Allan Kardec Spiritist Society of Maryland. But before we bring her into the screen with this very special topic, we are going to be reading a message from the book Living Spring, dictated by the Spirit Emmanuel to Chico Xavier. And the message is of number 65, Be Not Deceived. Are you looking at things only according to appearances? If anyone is confident that he belongs to Christ, he should remember that we belong to Christ as much as he does. This is a letter from Paul, the second letter to the Corinthians, chapter 10, verse 7. And Emmanuel provides us with the explanation. Do not be deceived about our common need of self-improvement. Many times, by overestimating our true worth, we see ourselves as privileged people in the art of spiritual growth. In such circumstances, we often thoughtlessly forget that others are doing much more for the good than we are. The firefly gives off tiny flashes in the darkness of and imagine itself to be the Prince of Light, but then it discovers the kindle flame that drowns it out. The kindle flame sits proudly atop a mantle and believes it is on the absolute throne of light. However, there comes a day when the electric lamp shines from the ceiling and obscures its flame. The lamp, in turn, becomes haughty on the public square, but each morning the sun shines in the sky, illuminating the entire earth, impelling both large and small planetary lights. As long as the protecting and educating darkness of the flesh remains, we are frequently the victims of our own illusion. But as the infinite brightness of the truth returns with the renewal of physical death, we can see in the Son of the Spirit world that divine providence's glorious love for all humankind. Do not exchange reality for appearances. Let us respect each accomplishment in its time and each person in his or her due place. We are all brothers and sisters on the pathway of evolution and spiritual growth, although we are still caught between good and evil. Wherever we activate our inferior part, the shadow of others will be our company. From the point where we project our good part, the light of our neighbor will come to meet us. Each soul is unknown to another soul. In light of this, it is not right to set the walls of our tranquility on the foundation of other people's sentiments. Let us not be deceived. Let us correct whatever may be harming our inner peace, and let us extend our fraternal arms and thoughts in every direction, being sure that if we have faults and virtues, when judgment time arrives, we will always receive in accordance with our own deeds. And by understanding that the goodness of the Lord shines on all without distinction of person, let us remember for our own spiritual growth and other people's sake Paul's meaningful words. If anyone is confident that he belongs to Christ, he should remember that we belong to Christ as much as he does. A beautiful message. It's a bit long, but it basically talks to us about this need of self-improvement. And if we are to extend out the good that we already have inside, we are going to find that others will be doing that as well, becoming the light, not only from ours, but also that of which our neighbor shines. And the same token, if we extend the negative, we are going to find exactly that very same thing. On that note, we are going to say our prayer. Good morning, Juan and Susana. Thank you for joining us, and anyone else that I don't see the names. let us say a short prayer with gratitude to our Master Jesus for this beautiful day that we have before us. And the beauty that comes from it is from recognizing that we are reincarnated, that we are alive, that we have been given the opportunity for growth, for the spiritism that comes to guide us as this invaluable tool for self improvement. We are so grateful for the benevolent spirits who may be with us right now, guiding and encouraging us to open up our minds, heart, and soul for the teachings, for the presentation that our loved Sonia is going to be bringing us this morning. Thank you so much for guiding us, dear Jesus, and being our role model, our guide. Once, twice, three times, infinitely, we recognize we have made many mistakes, yet we find in you the surety that if we are to follow your examples, we will be starting to count all the positive moments of growth that we have presently, preparing our place in the future, in the spirit realm, in a place that is very wholesome and noble. On this note, we thank you for being with us, and we also ask for blessings for our dear speaker this morning. Good morning, Carlos Baruchi. So as we had mentioned today, we have this very special guest with us, Dr. Sonia Doi, or Sonia. She doesn't really care for all the titles. We are so excited to have you with us, and thank you so much, Sonia, for being with us. The presentation is yours. I'm going to show it right now.
Thank you, Andrea, and thank you all who have joined us this Sunday morning. Thank you all for being with us. It's a great pleasure, it's an honor to participate in this presentations that you have every week. And I just want to mention that the message that Andrea just read could not be more appropriate for the talk that we are going to give now. And I just put some outlines here of things that I'm going to go through. But the most important point is to leave a message of resignation, courage, and hope. So let's start by some concepts of Perispirit, which I'm sure all of you know profoundly. But I just wanted to start with the principles that the Perispirit is that subtle fluid body of the spirit, and that it is the Perispirit is what connects the spirit with the physical body at the time of conception. And only at death this connection can be broken. And then when this connection breaks, the spirit leaves the body and goes with the Perispirit. So the message is the spirit is always involved by the Perispirit. And for those who want to read more about it, go to the Spirit's book. This messages, the instructions that I got here are basically in question 344, but there's so much more there to be learned. So what is the source of the Perispirit? And that goes to another book of Kardec, Genesis, which has so much about the cosmic fluid. And it says that the Perispirit is one of the most important products of the cosmic fluid. And the cosmic fluid condenses around the intelligent focus, which is the spirit. So with that, we learn that the Perispirit is formed by matter. That's an important concept. And again, the physical body, as we all know, is also originated by the same cosmic fluid that is condensed in a form of tangible matter, meaning we can touch and see physically. And that's another important concept. Although the Perispirit and the physical body originate from the same primitive element, which is the cosmic fluid, they are different forms of matter. Again, if you want to learn more, go and read Genesis. And here, the different forms of matter means different ways that the cosmic fluid gets assembled to form matter. So it's not the same specific type of matter. And again, in Genesis and Medium's book, we learn that the nature of this fluidic body, which is the perispirit, varies with the degree of moral advancement of the spirit. So it's not equal, it's not identical for all the spirits in the same world, meaning we are all here in planet Earth, and each one of us have a perispirit of different, is a little different from one another, because it depends on our degree of spiritual advancement. So Kardec says sometimes the fluidic body is so dense that it gets confused with the material body. And some of, the inferior spirits, they might even believe that they're still alive because their perispirit is so dense. It's not much different from their physical body, and it gets them sometimes confused. However, different from the perispirit, the physical body of all beings is formed by the same elements, independent of our degree of evolvement. So the perispirit varies, but the physical body is equal to all of us. That's why we can study anatomy, we can study histology in general terms, because our physical body is basically formed the same way, same matter. Now it's another concept, which is very important, and I will not have time to go through details here, but this comes from the Evolution in Two Worlds, when André Luiz brings us the concepts that he's learning from Clarencio. And it tells us the spirit body is not a reflection of the physical body. In fact, it is the physical body that reflects the spiritual body, which in turn portrays the mental body that presides its formation. So with this, we learned that there is a hierarchical order of things. The first command is the spirit, which in the mental body contains all the memories, all the experiences that we have ever lived. And that will preside over the formation of the perispirit according to our needs. And the perispirit will serve as a template for the formation of the physical body. We're going to discuss this a little more later, but this is something very, very important. The mental body is what presides over the formation of the perispirit. So now we're going to discuss a little bit about the mind. There's still in science a lot of discussion, like a tug of war, people that most of the scientific body believes that the mind is created by our physical brain. And we learn here from Spiritism that the mind is originated in the spirit. And some scientists, some doctors are already kind of starting to walk in this direction because of the experiences, the near-death experiences. But let's go back into what we learned from Spiritism. And I'm citing two books here, Evolution in Two Worlds and Between Earth and Heaven. So the interaction between the spirit and the body is established by the mind. that transmits the impulses of thought to the brain via the perispirit. And possibly this is a quantic interaction. And put possibly because we are kind of inferring from what we learned from André Luiz, and also some theories that came out in the scientific world. But just look at this picture that I put in there. And in that, I'm showing the two, some arrows. One is showing the pineal gland, the pituitary gland, and the hypothalamus. And this is important for the things that we're going to discuss later. The pineal gland is in connection directly with these capturing the information from the spirit realm. And the pituitary hypothalamus are, this is all in the brain. The pituitary and the hypothalamus are very important glands that are going to be commanding our endocrine system. So here is some kind of summarized explanations on how this work. Under the command of the mind, all cells, tissues, and organs of the physical body are integrated by the nervous system, and their functions are controlled by hormones. And again, those two books, Evolution in Two Worlds, Between Earth and Heaven, have more about it. So in my figure there, you see the pituitary gland within the brain, and then some of the glands of the endocrine system, there are commanded, that are controlled by the pituitary. The pituitary is called the master gland that controls all the other endocrine glands. And one of the most important connections there is with the adrenal gland, which produces hormones that are called hormones of stress response. And I think you all have heard about the fight and flight response, and that is the response to acute stress. So when we have an acute stress, our system releases a large quantity of cortisol and also adrenaline, and this is responsible for our heart accelerating, our pupils to to change into mydriasis, or closing, and sweating and agitation. So all this are stress responses, and stress, as you understand, comes from the mind, comes from our sensations, our senses, and then this activates our system in the hypothalamus and pituitary and all the responses. But the responses are not only those that I just mentioned from the very well-known endocrine system. We have also a network of neuropeptides, which are proteins that are produced in the brain, and they travel in the circulation, and there are receptors everywhere in the world, everywhere in the body. And this got well known when Dr. Candace Pert discovered the receptors for these molecules from these neuropeptides. and then she proposed that the neuropeptides and the receptors connects the brain, the glands, and the immune system in a network of communication between brain and body. And she proposed that this is a biochemical substrate of emotion. So she wrote, and this is very particular to her book called Molecules of Emotion. So, there was this is now is known, the molecules of emotion, as part of this neuropeptide network. So this interaction between the mind, the nervous system, the endocrine glands, the defense immune system was kind of discovered little by little by science, and they created a new discipline with this huge name that I put in there. Psychoneuroendoimmunology is the science that studies all the responses, especially from our immune system, in response to the endoneurocycle interactions. And this can have, two responses depending on the way we act or react. We may have an adaptive response, and after an acute stress, we may balance our hormones, our emotions, and everything, and recover our healthy status. Or if this persists, we may have a dysregulated response, and this may actually evolve to a disease. So, stress, acute stress may be useful when we need to respond quickly, or when it persists and becomes a chronic condition, we may have produce disease. Now, I want to bring the topic of thought. As we all know, thought is produced by the spirit. Again, citing the evolution into worlds, there's this paragraph that it brings us some very important message. The particle of thought, which is produced by the spirit, although alive and powerful, is passive before the sentiment gives it form and nature for good or evil. So what does that mean? Our thought, we create a thought and is neutral. It's passive. But as soon as we think, there's a sentiment that is connected to that thought. And that sentiment can be good or bad. So that gives a form and nature to our thought. So if I think of a person or a place, if I have a good connection with that person or that place, I create a good thought. But if I have an unpleasant sentiment, that will create maybe a bad or an evil thought. So the first lesson that we learn from there is that our thoughts are animated by our sentiments, and that modulates how our organism, how our body acts and reacts, because that's going to impact in our, as we just said, studied, the responses from the neuroendoimmune system. But we are learning something else from this very small paragraph. It's almost like a hidden message there, because Clarencio tells André Luiz that the particle of thought becomes good or evil depending on the sentiment that gives it form. What does that drives to? Particle. So we always think about thought being a wave, being energy, but it can become more than that. So thought can materialize, and then is when it can really impact, and as we're going to see later, impact our perispirit and our body. So we have to be conscious of that, and really think about the role of our thoughts in our health and everything else that we do. In the book Missionaries of the Light, the instructor Alexander tells André Luiz, the sick body almost always indicates a sick mind. So isn't that important? When we have a disease or some illness, something that's perturbing our body, we have to go back and analyze what is going on in our mind. The mind, generating thoughts and sentiments, directly modulates the function of the vital centers of the perispirit, which will reflect on the physical body. So now there's one more element for us to look into. How the thoughts created by the mind, by the spirit, goes through the perispirit and from there to the body. So there is a book that have not been translated yet, and it's called Perispirit. Let me see if I can put it in there. This book, written by Almino Zimmerman, is a large compendium, I would say, that condenses, that brought together all these spiritist concepts of perispirit from various books. And it's very interesting because it makes it easy to study and understand. But the author says illnesses can only be completely understood if we take in consideration the function of the perispirit, meaning its dynamic and constant interactions with the physical body and with the spirit, because it connects the two, by understanding its vital centers and its role in the organization and support of physical life. And it goes to say that conventional medicine, as we know, does not have the resources to capture the existence and functions of the perispirit. So we hope that one day medicine will get the resources to do that, and it will be much easier for doctors to make a diagnosis and to treat us. So hold on for a minute here. Okay, so let's look a little bit about the vital centers. The perispirit is governed by 7 vital centers, which branch into plexus and vibrate in harmony with each other through the controlling powers of the mind. Again, reminding us that it's the mind that controls this whole system. And the mind, the thought, impacts first the crown center, which is on the top of our head. Again, this is in the book Between Earth and Heaven. And it says the perispirit is a vehicle of electric cells, which can be defined as an electromagnetic field in which thought vibrates in a closed circuit. So imagine this. We already learned that the perispirit is made of cosmic fluid, but now we are looking at a more detailed information. It's made of some what they call electric cells, but it forms an electromagnetic field where thought vibrates in a closed circuit. So we create a thought and it starts to go from the crown center to all the other centers and circulates through, connecting to our body. So imagine if we have bad thoughts, ill thoughts, and this creates an unpleasant sensation. And that can be flowing in our body until we change our thought. So is there a way to stop this closed circuit? Yes. Every time we change our thoughts, we have to be mindful of that. We have to remember that. So we cannot be reverberating the same thought all the time, because we are creating this circuit that is impacting in our perispirit and, after all, our physical body. The ground center expresses the energy received from the incarnate spirit, from other spirits, and from the cosmic fluid, and transfers this energy to all the other centers that then transfer to the nerves through the organic plexus, and then moving this energy throughout the entire physical body. Well, I want you to pay attention to my words in blue there. This crown center that is in direct connection, receiving the thoughts of our own incarnate spirit, of our own spirit that generates thoughts. It goes through the crown center of our perispirit and from there to our body. But also the crown center is sensing thoughts or vibrations from other spirits. So what does that mean? Spirits that we are in tune with, that we are connected with. So if we are praying, if we are vibrating love and harmony, what are the spirits that are influencing us? Good spirits, benefactors. But if we are in bad mood, vibrating bad energy, we are connecting with inferior spirits, and they will influence our thoughts that are going through. So what goes through is not just our pure thoughts, our thoughts influenced by whoever we are connecting with in the spirit realm. Also, through the crown center comes energy from the cosmic fluid. So this is when we receive passes or we are in connection with nature. It's very easy to understand that. We go and have a walk in a good place in nature and we feel so much better. Why is that? We are absorbing this cosmic fluid, and that's how it works. So we are learning that our body is impacted by combination of multiple influences. But also another message here is that the perispirit is impacted first, prior to the physical body. Whatever comes to the crown center gets and impacts our perispirit first before it goes to the physical body. And that's another book that has not been translated. Dr. Jorge Andrea was a great spiritist medical doctor. And in his book, Enfoques Científicos na Doutrina Espírita, meaning scientific, I don't even know how to translate that, but how science in the spiritist doctrine says that before manifesting in the physical body, illnesses have already affected the perispirit and altered the functions of the vital centers. So that's reflecting what we just saw. He says further that the aura, we create an aura that is a projection of the perispirit. And that aura shows the signs of the illnesses before it's detected by the physical body. So it shows before we feel the symptoms. And this is how the spirits working in the realm of cure can diagnose and work in healing according with the merit of each person. They see the perispirit and they see that this is going to affect the body and they can work on that. So it would be great when we can diagnose by looking at the perispirit. And again, going back to that book in Portuguese about the perispirit, the author talks about some four sources of infirmities, and I'm going to go through each one of them just to kind of remind ourselves of what can cause um, an unhealthy situation. So first is atonement, which we all know is for some people also called as karma, and is basically resulting from the law of cause and effect. So these sentiments of guilt, remorse, when we don't do anything to resolve these sentiments, they are kind of accumulated, and when they are not alleviated by any actions that we will do, they will become a hidden pain of repentance created in the mind in an anomalous state. And André Luiz calls these areas of remorse. And our thought circulates around these areas. And that reflects on the perispirit. Whatever that area of remorse is, it localizes in the perispirit, which will connect to an area in our physical body. So we know that through the law of cause and effect, we have, through reincarnations, morbid predispositions, congenital diseases, and that's a process that may be prolonged for several incarnations, or it may be shortened by inner reform when we follow our master, when we follow the teachings of Jesus that lead us into an inner reform, getting back to the moral rules, to the good moral. So atonement is one of the causes of the diseases that are expressed in our body. And this is another important concept. The physical body is not only a divine receptacle for the growth of our capabilities, but also a kind of miraculous core, absorbing the toxic waste and shadows that we bring to the material body from past lives, from past experiences. So infirmities of the physical body is in general a process of cure of the soul. As we just mentioned in the past slide, sentiments of guilt, sentiments of things that we did in the past, remorse, can be carried out in our perispiritual, in our mind, and then in the perispirit, and then it will be expressed in our physical body. So once we go through whatever pain, physical pain, whatever that causes us to experience, we have the opportunity to make that an experience of learning, an experience of changing ourselves. When we do that, then we are curing our soul. It's almost like we are bringing that scar from the perispirit to the physical body. We take care of that, and that disappears from the perispirit. So our next incarnation, we are not carrying that anymore. So that's how the physical body can be a filter of impurities if we do the right actions. So the other cause of these infirmities are non-vigilance. So we have to be very vigilant of our mental state, as we already said. You know, any thoughts, bad thoughts, vengeance, uncontrolled emotions, sentiments of pride, selfishness, all of these are inferior thoughts. And that can impact, as we just said, our perispirit and reflects on the physical body. In the book Genesis, Kardec explains that thoughts generate fluidic images that are reflected in the perispiritual body as in a mirror and create a form as in a photograph, which is called thought forms. That's in Portuguese, forma pensamento. So remember when in some slides back there, we were talking about thoughts, and Andrea Luiz refers to thought as a form, to thought, meaning thought is a particle. So here, Kardec had already told us that. But sometimes we read very, we don't pay attention to very specific words that are in there. And this is one very special information that we need to pay attention to. The other thing that I want to bring to for us to reflect here is that the causes of affliction can be from this present life and past lives. So we cannot not think all the time that whatever I'm suffering is a reflection from something that I have done in the past life. No, it could be like what we are seeing right now. It's an invigilance. We are not being vigilant to our mental state. So it's our present life. We are creating suffering for ourselves through not only sentiments, but from our actions that reflect pride, selfishness, inferior thoughts, and whatever. So this it's more explained if we read the Gospel according to Spiritism, chapter "Blessed are the Afflicted." It's all there. What beautifully explained how the present afflictions can be caused by some invigilance, some acts in the present life, not necessarily from past lives. And Kardec goes even further, saying that most of times the afflictions that we are experiencing are a result of what we have done here in this same incarnation. Some psychological tensions can also be a cause of diseases, and we know this. Stress, this is very well known and studied. Perturbations of the mind that causes dysfunction of the vital centers first, and then this results in psychological disturbances and imbalance of the neuroendocrine system and all the neurohormones. So I just mentioned here just two examples of how stress can actually be expressed as real disease, as coronary disease, as type 2 diabetes, and there's so many other examples. But this is just an example to show that scientifically it's proven that stress can actually manifest as all sorts of diseases, including cancer. And surrounding influences. Remember when we just learned that our crown center is open to influences from other spirits. So surrounding psychosphere can influence our balance. The energy around us will affect our minds, our well-being, the same way that sounds, noise, odors can influence our well-being. So vibrations emitted by others, not only the discarnate spirits, but incarnate spirits. So sometimes you enter in a room or in an area and you feel, I'm not feeling good here. Something that bothers me here. So that's a sense that our crown center is capturing some of these bad vibrations. If we are surrounded by harmonious vibrations, we'll feel relaxed, we'll be healthy. If we're surrounded by bad vibrations, low energy, that makes us very uncomfortable. And we have two choices. One choice, when we can, we just get out of there. But the other choice is to be conscious of that, change our minds, and sometimes we are even able to help into change a little bit the vibration, the surrounding vibration. So overall, almost all infirmities, even those that appear to be fortuitous or incidental, are directly or indirectly related to the individual way of thinking and acting in the past or in the present life. That's André Luiz telling us that almost all infirmities that sometimes we think is incidental, is fortuitous, has nothing to do with what I'm thinking, what I'm doing, are usually related to the way we think and we act. But can we change that? Our genetic program can be changed by good or bad behavior. Our thoughts, our mental state can modify the way the genetic code expresses itself. So even if we were born with a predisposition to a disease, we were born with a congenital disease, not everybody is the same. We know that we compare two people with the same disease and they have different manifestations. And why is that? It's because our mental state can change the way, not only everything that we learned, but can change the way the cells react, can change the way the genes react. And this is so, so very important. There is a paper that I just cite there that studied meditation, relaxation response, and they have shown scientifically that this can change the way the genes are expressed. So in a favorable way. So we can change. And that's really very hopeful, because sometimes people say, I was born this way, there's nothing I can do. Yes, there is. So to finalize, diseases, illnesses, overall are opportunities of growth. So all physical or mental infirmities are always opportunities for spiritual growth. We can confront pain, serious illnesses without suffering. There's pain in the body, but if we understand the divine laws, if we understand the law of cause and effect, if we understand the several incarnations, the purpose of evolving, and if we exercise resignation. So first we need to understand, because otherwise it's very difficult to exercise resignation. Then we can confront these situations. Many times the infirmity manifested in the physical body is a process of elimination of the deep wounds that we are carrying in our soul. So let's look at that way. And infirmities, as we learned, are a cleansing mechanism provided by the divine, and that requires our inner reform. So we see as a cleansing mechanism when we act with resignation, when we change ourselves. And as we do this, we are evolving, we are growing spiritually. So that is a way that we can evolve with our perispirit becoming pure every time. And until one day we have a perispirit brighter than we have today, as the brightest spirit that we have ever known. Thank you.
Wow. So beautiful, Sonia. We just wanted to point out here this comment by Juan. He says, interesting, very complex topic. Thought I knew about it, and now I realize that I knew very little. Gratitude. Indeed, I mean, there is so much content that needs to be studied and then analyzed so that we can proactively walk towards this illumination here that you brought us. Brightness equals evolution. And how blessed are we for having our Master Jesus as our guide and role model so that we know how to get there. And it's not an easy task getting there,
Right?
but it's possible, right? And really, really great to watch you, Sonia, and think about the aspect of thought and the perispirit and its role in our own health. So thank you so much for this beautiful contribution. It is content that we now have online from someone like you who have a lot of knowledge on the topic. And how wonderful to hear a doctor speak like you do, because it basically encompasses the human being as a whole. So I'm very grateful to know that our world have people like you. So thank you, Sonia, for being with us. And I'm going to invite everyone to do our final prayer, and thanking you also for having been with us this morning, following along and having your comments, reading and seeing that you also felt as grateful as I did, as I do. So on this bright note, let us close our eyes if we wish to, but definitely open our hearts and souls. And thinking about everything that Sonia brought us, let us be open to receiving the healing energies as our thoughts start to envelop, encompass this gratitude that we feel in our hearts right now, which is the appropriate condition to receiving the wholesome energies that we are receiving at this moment. For our own homes have become an extension of the conscious living spirit center, knowing that the benevolent spirits are with us right now, knowing that our own spirit guide is also here, embracing us and talking to our spirit directly about the need to be mindful of all that is available for our spiritual growth, such as the spiritist body of knowledge that comes to explain, guide, enlighten, instruct on the proper way of living, so that reincarnated at this moment of transition where our planet is also modifying, we may keep up the pace so that eventually we can finish the race and say that we finally belong to a world that is a better one, a world of regeneration. Let us always seek our Master Jesus during the trialsome moments of our existence so that we don't fall ill because of the negative, pessimistic thoughts that invade and bombard our perispirit. Let us be mindful that healing and health begins with the mind that seeks the light, that seeks to understand life in such a way that we are able to modify the molecules and cells of our own perispiritual body, having thus a positive impact in our own physical body. Thank you so much for allowing us to have this content as this bright spiritual investment that has been made on our behalf, so that we can grow and ascend higher and higher. Bless us, dear Jesus, all of us, protecting our homes, our family members and friends, and also especially our dear Dr. Sonia Doi and her husband, Zé Maria. May your light shine bright in their home at this time, and may they feel the gratitude that emanates from our hearts to them. Thank you, and so be it. All right, I just wanted to point out to you guys, we are so close to being together physically again. We still have a few months or so, as we are looking for a new place that is going to be receiving us week after week. We're very excited about that. So I just wanted to point out that we have here this little square that is actually a square. But if you point your camera from your phone onto it, it's going to offer you the possibility to visit the website that we have for receiving donation. We haven't had any income coming in, which is normal. Our center has been closed since last year, but we are ready. We are ready to start looking for a new place. We are ready to start making the modifications when we do encounter a place, and everybody knows how expensive that is. So we count on the donations of the conscious family. After all, we are all roommates, and we can all contribute a little bit if possible, whether with a financial contribution or even material ones with items that we are going to need when we do open up. So keep in mind, we're very close to getting together, perhaps even prior to the end of the year. So we hope that you guys feel as encouraged as we do right now. So Sonia, thank you again.
Thank you so much. It was great to be with you all, and I'm really grateful for the opportunity to bring this study. I'm actually, not that I know all this, I'm just studying.
Thank you so much. It was great content that you brought, and the books that you mentioned really deserve our time and attention to reading it and reflecting about it. And if you have any questions about some of the contents that she brought, please be sure to send us a message here on Facebook or on Instagram, where we host our social media pages. So thank you so much, everyone. Have a wonderful Sunday and a wonderful week.